What happened to pirates, man? When I was just a wee little lad, my family was planning a trip to Malaysia, and the nice travel agent lady told us, just so you know, it is currently pirate season, which made little me think, holy frick. But then the nice lady explained that modern pirates basically just ride around in their little speedboats and scavenge for scraps. Plus, they'll just run away the moment anyone plays a song by Britney Spears. Hearing that did make me feel better, but I also couldn't help but think, wow, modern pirates suck. Back in the day, being a pirate meant swinging between the masts of a ship with a knife between your teeth, a monkey on your shoulder, and an itch in your pants. But the days when pirates were actual warlords that rivaled the strength of entire countries have long since passed. So after doing extensive research on every pirate who has ever lived, I have made a short list of some of the most notable pirates of all time. Bolognese? And now, we're gonna rank them. Pirates come in a variety of unique flavors, such as good boy turned bad, not so secretly actually a woman, didn't want to be a pirate but whoops, I'm the captain now, and the largest group of all, I came here to kill Spaniards and contract herpes, and brother, I am full of herpes. And I don't think anyone hated Spaniards more than this guy. This is Rock the Brazilian. Whenever this guy wasn't kicking puppies or ripping the wings off butterflies, his hobbies included dance to death, burn them alive, and balloon animals. A giraffe. His ship also flew a custom flag of a skeleton with writing underneath that said, "The corpse of a Spaniard." Unsurprisingly, Spanish mothers would actually use his name in place of the boogeyman when trying to scare their kids into behaving, which must have been extra terrifying when his 16-year-long piratical career ended with him just suddenly disappearing one day. Who likes balloon animals? B tier for balloon animals. Another pirate who was famous among the Spanish people was Cornelius Joel. He raided so many Spanish ships that they gave him the nickname of El Pirata, which literally translates to the pirate. And if that wasn't cool enough, he was also the second pirate ever to have a peg leg. A tier for, my leg! Having a peg leg or some other missing appendage was actually pretty rare for a pirate, since you typically need your whole body in order to complete your duties. Which is why pirates often had a type of severance package for anyone who lost body parts while serving the crew. The first one to formalize this rule was George Cusack, who included it in a thing he dubbed the Pirate Code. Aside from injury compensation, the code also included rules about democratic decision-making, fair loot sharing, no gambling, no fighting, and a strict bedtime enforced by the captain. Good night, men.
Good night, Captain.
It's me, Mario. Bye-bye.
Since most pirates used to be legitimate seamen, Cusack largely based the pirate code on maritime laws, which was a great idea for maintaining order except for the fact that these were pirates. So when it came to following rules that they didn't like, they just didn't. D tier for the rules. Aside from being Italian, what do Mario and the Pope have in common? The answer is this guy. Just like how Mario and Wario have their whole opposites thing going on, the Pope has this guy, Baltasar Cossa, who was something called an antipope. I'm not really sure how being the dope is different to being the Pope, but I'm guessing that a dope's duties really are as simple as just doing the opposite of what a Pope does, because Dope Cossa was an evil little freak. He was arrested for an absolutely insane list of crimes. And when a historian named Edward Gibbon was writing about the trial, he wrote, the more scandalous charges were suppressed. He was accused only of piracy, assault, sodomy, murder, and incest. Mr. Cossa, your list of crimes are so heinous, I don't think I can even stomach reading them aloud. How do you plea? Death penalty! Dope Cossa goes straight to F tier for Freaky Pope. Next up is Edward Teach, whom you probably know better by his nickname, Blackbeard. Most people think he got the name because of his long black beard, but did you know that it's actually because if you rearrange the letters in Edward Teach, you get... never mind. Despite being probably the most famous pirate from history, Blackbeard's career lasted just 2 years, during which he only captured 30 ships before being killed by a small force of sailors. The guy apparently abhorred violence and instead opted for psychological warfare in the form of keeping lit fuses under his hat to make people think he was on fire, I guess. Well, for whatever reason, it worked a treat, and he was described as such a figure that imagination cannot form an idea of a fury from hell to look more frightful. Which is an absolutely insane vibe to bring to the function, especially for someone whose career was really underwhelming. C tier for cheddar of the wet variety. It's disappointing that Blackbeard doesn't live up to the hype, but you want to know who exceeds the hype? This guy is Bartholomew Roberts, also known as Black Bart. He was just an honest seaman until his ship got taken over by pirates and he was forced to become their new navigator. After 6 weeks of moaning and complaining about having to work for the pirates, their captain was killed while trying to kidnap the governor of Portugal. So the pirates were like, damn, we need a new captain, but none of us know how to read a map. Or read. Oi, Bart, you want to be captain? What? No. Please? No. Please? No. Please? No. Please? Okay, fine. Yeah! He went on to become the #1 most successful pirate of the Golden Age. His crew called him pistol proof, which he was, until he wasn't. But when he entered his final battle, he was expecting to die. So, he dressed to the nines, wearing a deep red coat with a matching feather in his hat and a golden chain around his neck with a diamond cross hanging off it. He only spent 3 years as a pirate, but in that time, he became world famous and managed to capture over 470 ships. For that, Black Bart belongs in S tier, for seaman turned swagged out white boy. Unlike Black Bart, some pirates gained notoriety from a single very successful or very unsuccessful achievement. John Durdrake was the pirate who popularized the punishment of walking the plank. B tier. Here's where I would put him if it weren't for the fact that historians aren't entirely convinced that he even existed in the first place. C tier. For come on, man, don't waste my time. Nicholas Brown was a pirate who was hunted and killed by his childhood friend, and then he cut off his head and pickled it. I'm just gonna pop him over here. There you go. Another pirate whose career was absolute clown shoes was a guy called John Evans. He was most famous for robbing houses in a rowboat, which admittedly is, I think, as equally impressive as it is just so very sad. Give me all your money. Dang, it's the fuzz. Better split. Evans and his friends finally managed to capture a small ship together, which Evans promptly called dibs on and declared himself captain, which was considered kind of a dick move even for a pirate. Eventually, their crew grew to a total of 30 men, and then one of them shot Evans in the head, and they all just kind of went, oh, okay. And then they all just went home. D tier for kind of a dick. Next up, we have Benjamin Hornigold. And despite having a strong reputation, there's not really much about his career that stands out. But he was the captain to many fledgling pirates like Blackbeard and Black Bart, and many more pirates are remembered almost exclusively for being associated with him. He also once captured a ship explicitly because he saw the crew had cool hats and he wanted them. B tier for surprisingly based. John King was a passenger on a commercial ship that happened to get raided by pirates. King then confronted the pirates, but instead of fighting them, he pleaded with them to be allowed to join their crew, stating that he would kill himself if they refused. So the pirates refused. But instead of making good on his promise, King just made the whole ordeal really uncomfortable, so they eventually decided it would probably just be easier to take him instead. Also, he was 8 years old. A tier for an actual child. There were 4 pirates during the golden age of piracy who stood out for one reason. Because they were the only ones who couldn't grow beards. Because they were women. The most famous of the 4 was Anne Bonny, but tragically the records of Anne Bonny's life are pretty messy. And it's all thanks to the actions of a man. Oh, typical. Am I right, ladies? 6'4", by the way. Anyway, the man responsible was Charles Johnson, and he was such a fan of pirates that he wrote biographies for over 35 different pirates. But Johnson's obsession with pirates led him to embellish and invent so many details about their lives that all of his writing has now been officially labeled as likely not reflective of reality. It's because of him that there are still so many myths about her life circulating to this day, such as her falling in love with another pirate, only for that pirate to be revealed as Mary Read, one of the other 3 female pirates of the era. Or the idea that she had a special latch on her shirt that would allow her to expose her womanly qualities to anyone she was about to kill, so that their final moments were spent realizing that they had been bested by a woman. Nice. As girl boss as it would be if it were true, did I mention that I'm 6'4"? The whole thing makes no sense. Not only would it be physically dangerous, what if literally anyone else saw her doing this? And where would she have gotten the shirt? I can't imagine that she would have an excuse for getting it custom made, and if she made it herself, then she would have to run the risk of being caught sewing, which in the 18th century was basically admitting to being a woman in itself. I also forgot to mention that Johnson wrote under the pen name Captain Charles Johnson, which is just the cherry on top of the cringe cake. I wasn't going to rank him because he wasn't a pirate, but if he insists on being called captain, then fine. He can go right over there in the jar. Anyway, back to Anne Bonny. The few things about her that historians have confirmed to be true include that she was only a pirate for 3 short months before she, Mary Read, and the rest of the ship's crew were arrested and put to trial. While on trial, a woman named Dorothy Thomas was observing and immediately identified that Anne Bonny and Mary Read were secretly women, from the largeness of their breasts. Your Honor, just so you know, those 2 on the end are both women. What? How can you tell? Woman's intuition? Anne Bonny and Mary Read both go into B tier. Next up is a pirate known as Big Lad Pierre. The guy was around 7 feet tall, wielded an equally long 7-kilogram sword, and could bend coins in half with his fingers. An invasive military force called the Black Band killed his wife and burned down his village, which spurred Pierre into single-handedly starting a rebellion, during which he was recorded as being a strong, brave, and fair man who could decapitate several men with a single swing of his sword. Despite his great achievements, he was barely actually a pirate, since his pirating days were spent exclusively chasing down enemy ships and rescuing allied prisoners. So considering his lack of a piratical nature, the best I can do for him is A tier, for a good man, good husband, and an absolute unit on the basketball court. Next, we have Captain William Kidd, who was an English privateer and pirate hunter. One day, a member of his crew noticed a Dutch ship and urged Kidd to attack them, to which Kidd replied, "No, they're our allies. It would be piracy to kill an ally. Come on, please. No, please. No, please. No, please. Yeah, told you I'd never be a pirate." Wait. Unsurprisingly, since Captain Kidd made a habit out of doing this sort of thing, he was eventually branded as a pirate. Upon realizing that he would soon be hunted down, Kidd decided that he would sell all of his loot and bury the money in undisclosed locations, in hopes of using their whereabouts as bargaining chips if he ever got caught. Which he did, and then the negotiations went like this. "I know the location of a great buried treasure." "Really? You don't say." So, it's thanks to Kidd that we now have the trope of pirates searching for buried treasure. D tier for duo, as in the 2 times that he was hanged because the rope snapped the first time. And that brings us to the very last pirate. I was initially a little bit hesitant to bring this guy up because he's technically a modern pirate since his career only started in the 1990s, but look, who cares? He's famous all around the world and has an appetite for fruit. Give it up for Captain Feathersword! Not only has he had one of the longest pirate careers in history, but he and his crew typically bring in over $20 million a year. Sure, most of the people on this list could kill a Spaniard, but only one had the bravery to make fruit salad yummy yummy. And for that reason, he belongs right up here in his own super secret fruit salad yummy yummy tier. There, I think that's everyone. Oh, wait, I forgot about the guy from One Piece. I've only ever seen one episode of One Piece, and pretty much the only thing I remember about Lumpy, or whatever his name is, was that he was really stretchy. So... C tier for can't make me watch another episode. Actually, no, I changed my mind. F tier for Flubber, starring Robin Williams. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. And if you have your own thoughts about my rankings, don't. I think I'd better make my getaway before the One Piece fans try to lynch me for getting Puffy's name wrong. Until we meet again!